So probably gonna practice that number 9 at the bottom, kind of slow. Almost done with this, and then I don't have to, but I'm going to flip it, like invert a lot of these, and then start over, go slow again, even though I'm still technically going kind of slow. But I'm gonna finish this up here, if it'll let me lower it. Might put an audiobook on as well, just for something to do. This could be weird.
In the dark.
See?
Chapter 1.
Oh boy.
The cabin Harper Blake had always dreamt of a place where she could escape the relentless pace of city life, a sanctuary where she could immerse herself in her work without distractions. The secluded cabin nestled deep in the woods, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world, seemed like the perfect retreat. With its wooden exterior, rustic charm, and the promise of solitude, it was the ideal setting for her to work on her next big exposé, a story that could redefine her career as a journalist. As she drove up the winding dirt road, the forest around her grew denser, the sounds of traffic and urban noise fading into a distant memory. The cabin stood alone, its wooden frame weathered by years of exposure to the elements, but it exuded a certain allure. Harper parked her car on the gravel drive and took a deep breath, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. She grabbed her luggage and stepped onto the wooden porch, the creaking floorboards under her feet a subtle reminder of the cabin's age. Inside the cabin was modest but cozy. The walls were lined with bookshelves filled with old volumes and research materials, and a large wooden desk dominated the main room. A small kitchen area was separated by a rustic wooden partition, and a narrow staircase led to a loft bed ready to dive into her work. But as the night he sat up in bed, cabin's age grew stronger. Just an old wooden shed tucked away in a corner of the property. Its weathered exterior and overgrown vegetation hinted at years of neglect. Curiosity piqued, she approached the shed and pushed open the creaking door. Inside, the air was musty and filled with the scent of old wood and dust. The shed was empty, its contents long since removed. But Harper sensed there was something significant about it. Continuing her exploration, Harper climbed the narrow staircase leading to the attic. The steps were rickety, and she could feel the floorboards beneath her feet groaning under her weight. Reaching the top, she was greeted by a dimly lit space filled with old boxes and clutter. She rummaged through the contents, her fingers brushing against decades-old newspapers, letters, and photographs. It was in one of the lower boxes, hidden beneath a tattered blanket, that Harper discovered a small weathered shoebox. She opened it cautiously, her heart racing as she realized the box was filled with faded newspaper clippings. Her eyes scanned the first few articles, and her breath caught in her throat. They were about a missing child, a boy named Ethan Carter, who had vanished without a trace. Decades earlier, the clippings detailed the case of Ethan Carter, a young boy who had gone missing from a nearby town. The story recounted the frantic search efforts by the local authorities, the heart-wrenching interviews with Ethan's family, and the eventual silence as the case went. Cold Harper read on, her interest piqued by the inconsistencies and unanswered questions in the articles. There were mentions of strange sightings and unexplained occurrences around the time of Ethan's disappearance, and the police had never been able to pinpoint a suspect or a motive. As she continued to sift through the clippings, Harper found a photograph tucked between two of the articles. It was a black-and-white image of a young boy standing beside a man who looked strikingly similar to Caleb Monroe, a reclusive neighbor. The boy had a vacant expression, his eyes staring into the distance as if he were lost in thought. Harper's pulse quickened as she studied the photograph, the resemblance between the boy and Caleb growing more apparent with each passing second. Intrigued and unable to ignore the sense of connection she felt to this long-lost case, Harper decided to delve deeper. She made a mental note of the dates and details mentioned in the clippings and vowed to explore the story further. The more she read, the more she felt that there was something about Ethan Carter's disappearance that had been buried, hidden away like the shoebox in the attic. As the night grew darker, Harper returned to the cabin, her mind buzzing with questions. She knew that the whispers and creaking floorboards were just the beginning. The real mystery lay buried beneath the surface, and Harper was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Chapter 3. Unsettling Encounters. One afternoon, Harper decided to take a walk through the forest that bordered her property. The trees were tall and dense, their leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, as if whispering secrets to each other. The path was narrow and overgrown, but Harper felt a sense of adventure as she ventured deeper into the woods. She had been walking for a while when she heard a noise, a faint rustling in the underbrush. She paused, her heart pounding in her chest, and strained to listen. The sound came again, closer this time, and Harper's curiosity got the better of her. She followed the noise, her footsteps quiet and cautious. As she approached the source of the sound, Harper saw a figure moving through the trees. It was a young man, his face partially obscured by his hood. He seemed to be in his early 20s, and his movements were erratic, almost as if he were lost. Harper called out to him, hoping to offer help. The man turned, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment Harper felt a connection. But then his expression changed, becoming guarded and suspicious. "Can I help you?" Harper asked, stepping closer. The young man hesitated before speaking. "I'm just wondering," he said in a low voice. "I don't want any trouble." Harper noticed his hands were trembling slightly. The man shook his head. "No, I'm fine." Continued her walk, avoided her questions. Who was he, and why was he wandering through the forest like this? That night, Harper was lying in bed, trying to shake off her unease, when she heard the whispers again. This time they were louder and more distinct, echoing through the cabin like a distant chorus. She sat up, her heart racing and strained to listen. The whispers seemed to be coming from everywhere at once, their voices blending into a single eerie melody. Harper's breath caught in her throat as she realized the whispers were talking about her, mentioning her name and the young man she had encountered in the forest. She felt a chill run down her spine. Could the whispers be connected to the young man? Was he somehow involved in the strange occurrences around the cabin? Harper's mind raced as she tried to piece together the puzzle. She knew she had to find out more about this mysterious stranger and the secrets he might be hiding. The following day, scanning the underbrush for any signs of where he might have gone. As she walked, she noticed something strange, a set of footprints leading off into the woods. The prints were fresh, as if the man had left only hours before. Harper followed the trail, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. The footprints led her to a small clearing where she saw a worn path that seemed to go deeper into the forest. Harper followed the path, her curiosity overriding her fear. She had to know who this man was, and why he was connected to growing darker and more oppressive. But Harper was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. 9. No concrete each morph, yet this police had revealed of a man named Caleb who had been questioned by the police but had never been charged. Harper's interest peaked. She turned to the librarian. "Do you know anything about a man named Caleb Monroe?" she asked. The librarian's eyes widened slightly. "Caleb Monroe?" she repeated with question, but the librarian's warning left her feeling uneasy. People who asked too many questions did tend to disappear, and Harper couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking a dangerous path. As she walked back to the cabin, Harper thought about the young man she had encountered in the forest. Could he have? She saw it first here. Things were bad. Harper shaped his life. "Do you remember anything specific?" he asked, her voice softening. Daniel shook his head. "Just that I was running, and then I woke up here. I don't know why I was running or where I came from, despite nor the fact that he had mentioned living in this area. It was a detail that seemed too specific to be a coincidence." She decided to bring it up gently. Daniel hesitated for a moment before answering. "Near the old mine," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My family used to live near the mine." Harper's eyes widened in surprise. the old mine was significant. Auction to it, oh, in the cabin. Auction to it, oh, in the cabin. Harper felt a sense of connection to the young man, a shared understanding of the pain and secrets they both carried. She knew that uncovering the truth about Daniel's past and the mystery of Ethan Carter's disappearance would be a challenging journey, but she was determined to face it. Head-on, the shadows of the forest were deep and dark, but Harper was ready to shine a light on the secrets hidden within. The following day, Harper decided to confide in Caleb about Daniel. She needed someone to help her make sense of the young man's erratic behavior. She reached Caleb's place, a small, weathered structure that looked abandoned from the outside, but was surprisingly cozy inside. Caleb greeted her with a warm smile, his eyes hidden behind the brim of his hat. "Harper, I wasn't expecting you," Caleb said, his voice calm and welcoming. "I need to talk to you about something," Harper replied, her voice tense. "I found a young man wandering in the forest. His name is Daniel, and he doesn't remember much about his past. He mentioned living near the old mine." Caleb's expression shifted, becoming guarded and cautious. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, his voice low and measured. "Because I think there is a connection between Daniel and the whispers I've been hearing," Harper explained. "And I think you might know something about Ethan Carter's disappearance." Caleb's eyes narrowed and he leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "You're jumping to conclusions," he said. "People can be confused, lost. It doesn't mean there is a deeper connection." Harper noticed the way Caleb avoided meeting her eyes, tension in his posture. "Caleb, you've been acting strange too," she said, her voice firm. "You know more than you're letting on. Why are you protecting Daniel?" Caleb sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Harper, you have to be careful.
Just listening to
Some
a weird
things are better
audiobook
left
while
alone,
practicing
like the truth,"
weird stuff.
Harper shot back. "I'm not going to ignore what's happening just because it's uncomfortable. I need to know the truth, Caleb." Caleb's face hardened, and for a moment, Harper thought she saw a flicker of anger in his eyes. "You don't know what you're getting yourself into," he warned. "There are things about this town, things about this forest, that you can't understand." Harper stood her ground, her determination unwavering. And again, promise she seemed to become, and she knew that trust would be a crucial element in uncovering the truth. Caleb might be evasive and guarded, but Harper was determined to earn his trust and uncover the secrets hidden in the shadows of the forest. Chapter 7. Hidden Truths. That evening, Harper sat at her desk, the dim light from the lamp casting long shadows across the room. She had spent the day gathering more information about Daniel and the old mine, but it was the photograph tucked inside the shoebox that had really captured her attention. The image of Ethan Carter standing beside a younger Caleb had haunted her thoughts, and she was determined to get answers. Harper pulled out the photograph and studied it again. The resemblance between the young boy and Caleb becoming more apparent with each glance, she decided it was time to confront Caleb directly. She found him in the kitchen, his back turned to her as he stirred a pot of soup. "Caleb," Harper called softly, approaching him from behind. When he didn't respond, she placed a hand on his shoulder. He jumped, turning to face her, his eyes wide with surprise. "What are you doing here?" Caleb asked, his voice tense. "I need to ask you some questions," Harper said, her voice firm but gentle. "About Ethan Carter." Caleb's face paled and he took a step back, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "Ethan," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you know about Ethan?" Harper held up the photograph. "I found this. It's a picture of you and Ethan." "Who is he, Caleb, and what happened to him?" Caleb's eyes filled with a mix of fear and sadness as he looked at the photograph. He took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. "Ethan is my nephew," he finally said, his voice breaking. "He disappeared when he was just a boy." Harper's heart ached as she listened to Caleb's story. She could see the pain in his eyes, the weight of the burden he had been carrying for years. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice softening. "Why did you hide it?" Caleb sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because it was too painful," he said. "Ethan's disappearance changed everything. My family, my life. It all fell apart. Harper leaned forward, her eyes filled with empathy. I understand, she said, but you can't keep hiding from the truth. You need to face it, Caleb. Caleb shook his head, his eyes filled with desperation. I can't, Harper. Not if it means putting Ethan in danger. You don't understand what he's been through. Harper felt a surge of frustration. She knew Caleb was protecting Ethan, but she also knew that the truth needed to come out. Caleb, I need to know the truth, she insisted. What happened to Ethan, and why is he still missing? Caleb's eyes met hers, and for a moment, Harper thought she saw a flicker of vulnerability. Ethan was kidnapped, he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. His father, my brother, tried to abduct him. We had to hide him, keep him safe. I helped Ethan fake his death, make it look like he was still missing. Harper's breath caught in her throat as the pieces began to fall into place. So Ethan is still alive, she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Caleb nodded, his eyes filled with sorrow. He's alive, but he's in hiding. We moved him to a safe place, away from everything and everyone who might find him. Harper felt a mix of emotions, shock, anger, and a deep sense of responsibility. She had stumbled upon a family secret that went far deeper than she had ever imagined. Why didn't you tell the police? She asked, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. Caleb shook his head. Because my brother would have found him, he said. He's dangerous, Harper. He'll stop at nothing to get his hands on Ethan. Harper knew Caleb was telling the truth. She had seen the fear in his eyes, the pain in his voice. But she also knew that exposing the truth was the only way to ensure Ethan's safety in the long term. Caleb, I need to help you, she said. I need to help Ethan. Caleb looked at Harper, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and desperation. You're the only one who can, he said. But you have to be careful. My brother is relentless, and he won't stop until he gets what he wants. Harper nodded, determination burning in her heart. I'll do whatever it takes, she said. I promise. As Harper left Caleb's cabin, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with danger and uncertainty, but she was ready to face it, to uncover the truth and protect Ethan at all costs. The shadows of the forest might be deep and dark, but Harper was ready to shine a light on the secrets hidden within. Chapter 8. Shadows closed in that night. Harper's sleep was restless. The whispers in the dark had grown louder, more insistent, and she found herself waking up multiple times, her heart pounding in her chest. Each time, the whispers seemed to be closer, more personal, as if they were trying to draw her into their secrets. Exhausted and on edge, Harper finally gave up on sleep and decided to explore the cabin's attic again, hoping to find something that might shed light on the strange occurrences. She climbed the rickety staircase to the attic, the floorboards creaking ominously beneath her feet. The dim light from a single bulb cast long shadows on the walls, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Harper rummaged through the cluttered attic, her fingers brushing against old letters, photographs, and faded newspaper clippings. It was in one corner, hidden beneath a pile of old blankets, that she found a small leather-bound journal. Opening the journal, Harper's eyes scanned the handwritten entries. The entries were sporadic, but they provided glimpses into a life filled with fear and desperation. The writer, whose name was Caleb Monroe, had documented the events surrounding Ethan Carter's disappearance and the efforts to keep him hidden. As Harper read, she learned about the frantic nights spent moving Ethan from one hiding place to another, the constant fear of being discovered, and the lengths Caleb had gone to protect his nephew. One entry in particular caught Harper's attention. It was dated the night Ethan went missing. Caleb had written about the confrontation with their abusive father, who had threatened to take Ethan by force if Caleb didn't hand him over. The words were raw and emotional, filled with a sense of dread and helplessness. Harper could almost feel the weight of Caleb's burden, the fear that had driven him to make the desperate decision to hide it. As Harper read, she felt a chill run down her spine. The journal confirmed what Caleb had told her, that Ethan was still alive and in hiding, but it also made her realize the extent of the danger they were in. Their father was a dangerous man, willing to do anything to get his way. And now Harper was caught in the middle, trying to balance her duty as a journalist with her newfound connection to Caleb and Ethan. Just as Harper was about to put the journal back, she noticed a small slip of paper tucked inside. It was a map, marked with various locations throughout the forest. Harper's eyes widened as she studied it. One of the markers was located near an abandoned mine shaft, the same place Daniel had mentioned. Could this be where Ethan was hiding? And if so, why was Caleb keeping it a secret? She knew she had to find out more, but she also knew the danger she was putting herself. In the forest was vast and unforgiving, and the shadows seemed to grow darker with each passing moment. She decided to follow the map, hoping to uncover the truth and find Ethan, but she was prepared for the worst. The whispers in the dark had warned her that this journey would be dangerous, and she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. As Harper left the attic and made her way back to her room, she felt a sense of determination mixed with fear. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to uncover the truth and protect Ethan at all costs. The shadows of the forest might be deep and dark, but Harper was ready to shine a light on the secrets hidden within. Chapter 9. Into the Mine. Following the map Caleb's journal had revealed, Harper set out into the forest, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. The map marked the location of the abandoned mine shaft. Near a dense thicket of trees, Harper navigated through the underbrush, her breath coming in short, controlled bursts as she moved deeper into the woods. The shadows grew longer, the forest seeming to close in around her, but Harper pressed on, driven by the need to find Ethan. The path grew steeper and more treacherous. As Harper approached the mine shaft, she could feel the cool, damp air against her skin, and the sound of her footsteps echoed loudly in the silence. Nakia reached the entrance, a rusted metal door covered in vines and moss. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and pushed the door open with a creaking sound. Inside the mine, the air was thick and stale, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. Harper's eyes adjusted to the dim light, revealing the narrow, winding tunnels that stretched into the darkness. She moved cautiously, her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the walls as she followed the path marked on the map. The tunnels were narrow and low, forcing Harper to bend down in places to avoid hitting her head on the low ceiling. As she walked, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The air seemed to hum with a sense of anticipation, as if something was waiting for her at the end of the tunnel. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest, and reached a larger chamber about halfway through her journey. The walls were covered in old graffiti, names, dates, and symbols etched into the stone. Harper's eyes scanned the graffiti, her pulse quickening as she recognized some of the names: Ethan Carter, Caleb Monroe, and other familiar names from the newspaper clippings and Caleb's journal. The dates matched the timeline of Ethan's disappearance, and the symbols seemed to form a pattern, a hidden message that Harper couldn't decipher at first glance. Just as Harper was about to focus on the graffiti, she heard a noise, a faint rustling from the shadows. She turned, her flashlight beam sweeping across the chamber, but saw nothing. The noise came again, this time louder and more distinct. Harper's heart raced as she realized she wasn't alone. She tightened her grip on her flashlight, her eyes searching the darkness for any sign of movement. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, his face obscured by the dim light. It was Daniel, his eyes wide with fear and his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. "Harper, I need your help," he said, his voice trembling. "I remember why I'm here, and I need you to stay away from Caleb." Harper's mind raced as she processed Daniel's words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear that was creeping into her chest. Daniel took a step closer, his eyes filled with desperation. "Caleb is involved in Ethan's disappearance," he said. "He helped my family hide Ethan, but now he's using him as leverage. He's planning to trade Ethan to our father in exchange for his freedom." Harper's eyes widened in shock. She had suspected that Caleb was hiding something, but she hadn't imagined that he would go to such lengths. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Daniel's eyes filled with sorrow. "I was scared, Harper. I didn't know who to trust. I thought if I told you, Caleb would find a way to hurt Ethan." Harper felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let Caleb get away with his plans, no matter the cost. "We have to stop him," she said, her voice firm. "But we need to be careful. Caleb is dangerous, and he won't hesitate to use Ethan as a pawn." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with hope. "I know. That's why I came here. I wanted to find you and warn you before it was too late." Just as Harper was about to ask Daniel more questions, they heard footsteps approaching. The sound grew louder, closer, and Harper's heart pounded in her chest as she realized they weren't alone. Someone or something was following them. Harper and Daniel ducked back into the shadows, their breaths coming in shallow, rapid bursts as they waited for the footsteps to pass. The footsteps grew closer, and then stopped. Harper's heart raced as she held her breath, waiting for the next move. The silence stretched on, broken only by the sound of their own breathing. Suddenly a figure emerged from the shadows, moving silently toward them. Harper's eyes widened in shock as she realized it was Caleb. Caleb's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice low and threatening. "But you're too late, Harper. Ethan is mine now." Harper's mind raced as she tried to think of a way to escape. She knew she had to be careful, but she also knew that she couldn't let Caleb harm Ethan. "Caleb, stop!" she shouted, stepping forward. "You can't do this." Caleb's eyes narrowed, and he raised his hand as if to strike. Harper braced herself, ready to fight for Ethan's life. But before Caleb could react, a loud noise echoed through the mine, drawing their attention away from each other. Harper took the opportunity to pull Daniel behind her, her heart pounding in her chest as she prepared for the confrontation that was about to unfold. The shadows of the mine seemed to close in around them, the air thick with tension and fear. Harper knew that the truth was close, but she also knew that the danger was growing. She was ready to face whatever came next, determined to uncover the truth and protect Ethan at all costs. Chapter 10. Revelations. As the echo of the loud noise faded, Harper and Daniel crouched low, their hearts pounding in their chests. The tension in the air was palpable, and Harper could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She knew she had to act quickly, but she also knew that she needed more information to understand what was really happening. Just then a figure emerged from the shadows, his silhouette outlined by the dim light of the mine. It was Caleb, his face twisted in anger and desperation. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice low and threatening. "But you're too late, Harper. Ethan is mine now." Harper's eyes widened in shock. She had suspected that Caleb was hiding something, but she hadn't imagined that he would go to such lengths. "Caleb, stop!" she shouted, stepping forward. "You can't do this!" Caleb's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "Ethan is the only thing that matters now. My brother is a monster, and he'll stop at nothing to get his hands on him." Harper felt a surge of anger and sadness. She had seen the pain in Caleb's eyes, the weight of the burden he'd been carrying for years. But she also knew that she couldn't let him harm Ethan. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. "Why did you hide Ethan all these years?" Caleb took a deep breath, his shoulders shaking as he fought to control his emotions. "Because it was too painful," he said, his voice breaking. "Ethan's disappearance changed everything. My family, my life, it all fell apart. I had to protect him, Harper. I had to keep him safe." Harper felt a pang of sympathy for Caleb. She could see the pain in his eyes, the fear that had driven him to make the desperate decisions. But she also knew that the truth needed to come out. "Caleb, you can't keep hiding," she said, her voice firm. "You need to face the truth, no matter how painful it is." Caleb shook his head, his eyes filled with desperation. "I can't, Harper. Not if it means putting Ethan in danger. You don't understand what he's been through. You don't understand what my brother is capable of. Harper took a step closer, her voice softening. Caleb, I'm here now, she said. I'm here to help you, but you have to trust me. You have to let me help Ethan. Caleb's eyes met hers, and for a moment Harper thought she saw a flicker of hope. All right, he said, his voice trembling. I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise me you'll keep Ethan safe. Harper nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. I promise, she said. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Ethan. Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes closing, as if gathering the strength to speak. Ethan survived the kidnapping, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But he chose to disappear because he was protecting someone, his older sister, Harper. Harper's breath caught in her throat as she processed Caleb's words. She had always suspected that Ethan was alive, but she hadn't imagined that he was protecting her. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Caleb opened his eyes, his expression filled with sorrow. Ethan survived the kidnapping because he was hiding in the mine, he said. But he knew that if our father found him, he would use him to get to you. So he faked his death, made it look like he was still missing. Harper felt a mix of emotions, shock, anger, and a deep sense of responsibility. She had always wondered why Ethan had disappeared, why he had left without a trace. Now she understood. Ethan had been protecting her, sacrificing his own life to keep her safe. Caleb continued, his voice trembling with emotion. I helped Ethan fake his death, he said. We moved him to a safe place, away from everything and everyone who might find him. But I knew that our father would never give up, that he would stop at nothing to get his hands on Ethan. So I had to keep him hidden, keep him safe. Harper felt a surge of determination. She knew that uncovering the truth was the only way to ensure Ethan's safety. Caleb, we need to find Ethan, she said, her voice firm. We need to bring him back home. Caleb nodded, his eyes filled with hope. I know, he said, and I'll help you, but you have to be careful. Our father is dangerous, and he won't hesitate to use Ethan as a pawn. Harper nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with danger and uncertainty, but she was ready to face it, to uncover the truth and protect Ethan at all costs. The shadows of the mine might be deep and dark, but Harper was ready to shine a light on the secrets hidden within. As Harper and Caleb made their way out of the mine, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to uncover the truth and bring Ethan back home. The shadows of the forest might be long and dark, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. Chapter 11. Family Secrets. Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and determination. Ethan survived the kidnapping, he began, his voice trembling slightly. But he chose to disappear because he was protecting someone, his older sister Harper. Harper's breath caught in her throat as she processed Caleb's words. She had always wondered why Ethan had disappeared, why he had left without a trace. Now she understood. Ethan had been protecting her, sacrificing his own life to keep her safe. Caleb continued, his voice growing steadier. Ethan was only 6 years old when our father kidnapped him, he said. We had just moved to the town trying to escape our abusive father, but he found us, tracked us down, and took Ethan away. We had no idea what had happened to him for months. Then one day, Ethan's mother received a letter from our father demanding a ransom. Harper's heart ached as she listened to Caleb's story. She could imagine the fear and desperation that must have filled their lives during those months. The constant worry that their father would harm Ethan if they didn't comply with his demands. Caleb's voice grew softer, his eyes fixed on Harper's face. We didn't have the money for the ransom, he said, but we knew we had to do something, so we made a plan. We hid Ethan in the mine, hoping he would be safe there. We told him to stay hidden and not come out until we could figure out a way to rescue him. Harper felt a surge of emotion, her eyes filling with tears. She had never known the full extent of the danger her family had been in all those years ago. She had always thought of Ethan's disappearance as a tragic event, but now she realized it was a desperate act of love and protection. Caleb's voice broke as he continued, his eyes filled with sorrow. "But our father found out where we were hiding," he said. "He came to the mine, looking for Ethan. We had to move him again, hide him somewhere else. We kept moving him from one hiding place to another, always looking over our shoulders, always afraid he would find us." Harper could see the pain in Caleb's eyes, the weight of the burden he had been carrying for years. She knew that uncovering the truth was the only way to bring closure to this chapter of their lives. "Caleb, you did everything you could to protect Ethan," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "And you've been carrying this burden for far too long." Caleb nodded, his eyes meeting Harper's. "I had to," he said, his voice breaking. "Ethan was my family. My nephew, I couldn't let anything happen to him, and I knew that if I told anyone, our father would find a way to get to him." Harper took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that uncovering the truth was the only way to ensure Ethan's safety. "Caleb, we need to find Ethan," she said, her voice firm. "We need to bring him back home." Caleb nodded, his eyes filled with hope. "I know," he said, "and I'll help you, but you have to be careful. Our father is dangerous, and he won't hesitate to use Ethan as a pawn." Harper nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with danger and uncertainty, but she was ready to face it, to uncover the truth and protect Ethan at all costs. The shadows of the forest might be long and dark, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. As Harper and Caleb made their way back to the cabin, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to uncover the truth and bring Ethan back home. The shadows of the forest might be deep and dark, but Harper was ready to shine a light on the secrets hidden within. Chapter 12. Betrayal. As Harper and Caleb made their way back to the cabin, Harper felt a growing sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was more to Caleb's story than he was letting on. She decided to confront Daniel about his true intentions, hoping to clear up the confusion and find the truth. When Harper found Daniel in the kitchen, he seemed distracted, his eyes darting around the room as if he was looking for something. "Daniel," Harper called softly, approaching him. "Can we talk?" Daniel looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and apprehension. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tense. "I need to know the truth," Harper said, her voice firm. "Why did you really come to the cabin, and why are you helping Caleb?" Daniel's eyes widened, and he took a step back, his hands trembling slightly. "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "Caleb is the only family I have left. He's all I have." Harper felt a pang of sympathy for Daniel. She could see the pain in his eyes, the weight of the burden he had been carrying for years. But she also knew that she couldn't let him be used as a pawn in Caleb's schemes. "Daniel, you need to tell me the truth," she insisted. "What's really going on?" Daniel's eyes filled with desperation. "Caleb and I have been hiding Ethan for years," he said, his voice trembling. "We've been moving him from one hiding place to another, always looking over our shoulders, always afraid our father would find us. But now Caleb has a new plan. He wants to trade Ethan to our father in exchange for his freedom." Harper's heart raced as she processed Daniel's words. She had suspected that Caleb was involved in Ethan's disappearance, but she hadn't imagined that he would go to such lengths. "Why would Caleb do that?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Daniel's eyes filled with sorrow. "Caleb is desperate," he said. "He's been carrying this burden for years, hiding Ethan, protecting him from our father, but now he's out of options. He's willing to do anything to get out of this mess." Harper felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let Caleb get away with his plans, no matter the cost. "We have to stop him," she said, her voice firm. "We have to find Ethan and protect him." Daniel nodded, his eyes filled with hope. "I know," he said, "and I'll help you, but you have to be careful. Caleb is dangerous, and he won't hesitate to use Ethan as a pawn. Just as Harper was about to ask Daniel more questions, the door to the cabin burst open and Caleb stormed in, his eyes filled with anger and desperation. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice low and threatening. "But you're too late, Harper. Ethan is mine now." Harper stepped in front of Daniel, her heart pounding in her chest. "Caleb, stop!" she shouted, her voice trembling with emotion. "You can't do this!" Caleb's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of anger and desperation. "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "Ethan is the only thing that matters now. My brother is a monster, and he'll stop at nothing to get his hands on him." Harper felt a surge of anger and sadness. She had seen the pain in Caleb's eyes, the fear that had driven him to make the desperate decisions he had. But she also knew that she couldn't let him harm Ethan. "Caleb, you need to face the truth," she said, her voice firm. "You need to let us help you." Caleb shook his head, his eyes filled with desperation. "I can't, Harper," he said, his voice breaking. "Not if it means putting Ethan in danger. You don't understand what he's been through. You don't understand what my brother is capable of." Harper felt a surge of frustration. She knew that Caleb was protecting Ethan, but she also knew that the truth needed to come out. "Caleb, you have to trust us," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We're here to help you, to protect Ethan." Just as Caleb was about to respond, Daniel stepped forward, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and betrayal. "You're wrong, Harper," he said, his voice breaking. "Caleb is using us. He's using Ethan. He's just another pawn in his own twisted game." Harper's eyes widened in shock as she realized Daniel had been working with Caleb all along. "Daniel, what do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Daniel's eyes filled with sorrow. "Caleb and I have been planning this for years," he said. "We've been hiding Ethan, moving him from one place to another, always looking over our shoulders, always afraid our father would find us. But now, Caleb has a new plan. He wants to trade Ethan to our father in exchange for his freedom." Harper felt a surge of anger and betrayal. She had trusted Daniel, believed he was on her side, only to discover that he had been working with Caleb all along. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" she asked, her voice trembling with anger. Daniel's eyes filled with sorrow. "I was scared," he said. "I thought if I told you, Caleb would find a way to hurt Ethan. I thought if I trusted you, you'd put him in danger." Harper felt a surge of frustration. She had been so focused on uncovering the truth about Ethan's disappearance that she hadn't seen the deception right in front of her. "All right, Daniel," she said, her voice firm. "But you need to understand that we can't let Caleb get away with this. We have to stop him, no matter what it takes." As tensions escalated, Harper realized she was trapped in a web of deception and betrayal. She had to find a way to expose the truth and protect Ethan, even if it meant putting herself in danger. The shadows of the forest might be long and dark, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. Chapter 13. Fast to fast, Harper's heart pounded as she stepped into the dimly lit room where Ethan was being held. The air was thick with tension, and Harper could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, and approached the figure sitting in the corner. As the light from the lamp cast a shadow over Ethan's face, Harper's breath caught in her throat. Ethan was older now, but the resemblance to the boy in the photograph was unmistakable. "Ethan," Harper whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's me, Harper. I've come to help you." Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of surprise and relief. "Harper?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Is it really you?" Harper nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Yes, it's me. I've been looking for you, trying to find out what happened to you." Ethan's expression softened, and he took a step closer. "I knew you would find me," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I knew you wouldn't give up." Harper took a deep breath, her eyes scanning Ethan's face. He looked older, more mature, but there was still a hint of the young boy she had known all those years ago. "Ethan, you don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "You don't know what Caleb has been doing. He's been hiding you, protecting you. he's also been using you. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. What do you mean? He asked, his voice trembling with anger and confusion. Harper took a deep breath, steadying herself. Caleb has been planning to trade you to our father in exchange for his freedom, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. He's been using you as a pawn in his own twisted game. Ethan's eyes filled with a mix of anger and sadness. Caleb? He repeated, his voice barely a whisper. He wouldn't do that. He's my uncle. He's the only family I have left. Harper nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow. I know, Ethan, she said, but he's been carrying a heavy burden for years, hiding you, protecting you. He's been manipulated by our father, by the things that happened all those years ago. He's been trying to protect you, but he's also been using you as a pawn in his own twisted game. Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of anger and sadness. I don't understand, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Why would Caleb do that? Why would he use me like that? Harper took a deep breath, her eyes scanning Ethan's face. She could see the pain in his eyes, the confusion and betrayal. Ethan, you have to understand, she said, her voice softening. Caleb is trapped in a web of his own making. He's been hiding you for so long. He's lost sight of the truth. He's been manipulated by our father, by the things that happened all those years ago. He's been trying to protect you, but he's also been using you as a pawn in his own twisted game. Ethan's eyes filled with sorrow. I don't know what to think, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. I don't know who to trust. Harper took a step closer, her eyes filled with determination. Ethan, you have to trust me, she said, her voice firm. I'm here to help you. I'm here to protect you. We have to find a way to stop Caleb, to expose the truth and free you from this web of deception. Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of hope and fear. I believe you, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. But I'm scared. I'm scared of what our father will do if he finds out. I'm scared of what Caleb will do if he finds out I'm talking to you. Harper took a deep breath, her eyes scanning Ethan's face. She could see the fear and confusion in his eyes, the weight of the burden he had been carrying for years. Ethan, you don't have to be scared, she said, her voice softening. We'll find a way to protect you. We'll find a way to expose the truth and free you from this web of deception. Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of hope and determination. I trust you, Harper, he said, his voice trembling with emotion. I trust that you'll find a way to help me. Harper nodded, her eyes filled with determination. We'll find a way, Ethan, she said, her voice firm. We'll find a way to bring you back home, to expose the truth and free you from this web of deception. As Harper and Ethan made their plans to expose the truth and free Ethan from Caleb's control, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to protect her brother and uncover the truth. The shadows of the forest might be long and dark, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. Chapter 14. Sacrifices. Harper knew that exposing the truth about her father's crimes and the secrets surrounding Ethan's disappearance would require a plan that was both clever and daring. She needed to gather enough evidence to make her story untouchable, but she also knew that the process would put her own life at risk. Harper made a decision that would change everything. She would stage a dramatic escape from the cabin, drawing attention away from herself and Ethan while she gathered the necessary evidence. That night, Harper and Caleb discussed the plan. Caleb was hesitant, worried about the safety of Ethan, but Harper convinced him that it was the only way to ensure their safety in the long term. They would stage an escape, making it seem like Harper was fleeing with the evidence, while she secretly returned to gather more information and expose the truth. The night of the escape arrived, and Harper meticulously followed the plan. She packed a bag with her most important documents, including the newspaper clippings, Caleb's journal, and any other evidence she had collected. She left a note for Caleb and Ethan, explaining her plan and assuring them that she would return. Then, under the cover of darkness, Harper made her way to the forest. her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. As Harper walked through the forest, she kept her eyes and ears open for any signs of danger. She knew that her father would stop at nothing to protect his secrets, and she was prepared for the worst. The forest seemed to close in around her, the shadows growing longer and darker as she ventured deeper into the woods. Harper's thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and determination. She had to succeed, not just for herself, but for Ethan and Caleb. Harper reached a secluded spot near the edge of the forest, where she knew her father would be less likely to look for her. She set down her bag and took a deep breath. Steadying herself, she had to gather enough evidence to make her story compelling and undeniable. Harper knew that her father's reputation in the town was built on a foundation of lies and manipulation, and she was determined to tear it down. Harper started by visiting the places where she had found the most significant clues: Caleb's cabin, the old mine, and the shed on her property. She gathered any remaining evidence she could find, making sure to document everything with her camera. Each step brought her closer to the truth, but also closer to the danger that awaited her. As Harper made her way back to the cabin, she felt a sense of urgency. She knew that she had to return before her father discovered her absence. The forest seemed to grow more oppressive with each step, the shadows longer and darker. Harper's heart pounded in her chest as she reached the edge of the forest and made her way back to the cabin. Just as Harper was about to enter the cabin, she heard footsteps approaching. Her heart raced as she ducked behind a tree, watching as two men emerged from the darkness. They were her father's men, and Harper knew that they were here to find her. She had to act quickly. Harper made a split-second decision. She would stage a confrontation, drawing the men's attention away from the cabin and giving her the opportunity to slip inside and gather the final piece of evidence she needed. Harper stepped out from behind the tree, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Hey, it's me," Harper called out, her voice steady despite the fear that was creeping into her chest. "I just wanted to talk." The men stopped, their guns raised, their eyes scanning Harper. "What are you doing here?" one of them asked, his voice filled with suspicion. "I'm looking for my brother," Harper replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I think he's in danger." The men exchanged a glance, their expressions hard to read. "Why didn't you say so from the start?" one of them asked, lowering his gun slightly. Harper took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Because I wanted to find the truth first," she said, her voice firm. "I think my brother is being held against his will, and I need to find out where." The men exchanged another glance, their expressions softening slightly. "All right," one of them said. "We'll take you to him." Harper followed the men, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that this was her chance to gather the final piece of evidence she needed. As they approached the cabin, Harper noticed a small hidden compartment behind a loose floorboard. She reached inside, her fingers brushing against the thick envelope filled with documents. Harper quickly slipped the envelope into a pocket, her heart racing. She had to be careful, but she knew that this evidence would be crucial in exposing her father's crimes. As the men led her into the cabin, Harper kept her eyes and ears open, ready to act at a moment's notice. Inside the cabin, Harper found Caleb and Ethan waiting for her. She felt a surge of relief, knowing that they were safe. "We need to leave," Harper said, her voice trembling with urgency. "We have to get out of here before your father finds us." Caleb and Ethan nodded, their faces filled with fear and determination. They knew that Harper was right. They had to leave, and they had to do it now. As they made their way back into the forest, Harper felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to expose the truth and protect her brother. The shadows of the forest might be long and dark, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. Chapter 15. Whispers Fade. In the days that followed, Harper worked tirelessly to compile her findings into a compelling narrative. She spent countless hours at her desk, poring over documents, photographs, and the journal Caleb had entrusted to her. The more she delved into the story, the more intricate and disturbing it became. The evidence she had gathered painted a picture of a family torn apart by abuse, deceit, and a desperate desire to protect the loved one. Harper knew that her exposé would not only reveal her father's dark history, but also expose the secrets surrounding Ethan's disappearance. She was determined to bring justice to Ethan and herself, to lay the ghosts of the past to rest. With each piece of evidence she pieced together, Harper felt a growing sense of urgency. She had to act quickly before her father could find a way to silence her. The night before the article was set to be published, Harper sat at her desk, the room filled with soft glow of her desk lamp. She had everything in place, every detail meticulously documented. As she reviewed her work one last time, she felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The whispers in the dark had been a constant presence throughout her journey. But now, as she prepared to expose the truth, they seemed to fade into the background. Harper took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. She was ready to face whatever came next. With a final glance at her notes, she hit the publish button, sending her exposé into the world. The next morning, Harper awoke to a flurry of activity. Her phone rang constantly, emails poured in from news outlets around the world, and her social media feeds were flooded with reactions to her article. The response was overwhelming, and Harper felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had exposed the truth, brought justice to Ethan, and brought her father's crimes to light. As the day went on, Harper felt a growing sense of relief. The whispers in the dark had been a constant reminder of the danger she had been in. But now, as the truth came to light, they seemed to fade away. The shadows of the forest that had once seemed so ominous now felt like a distant memory. However, as Harper was about to leave the cabin for good, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, rattling the windows and sending a shiver down her spine. Harper turned her eyes, scanning the room, trying to place the source of the sound. As the wind died down, she heard it again, a faint whisper, barely audible. Her heart raced as she realized the whispers were still there, lingering in the corners of the cabin, as if they were trying to make one final statement. Harper stepped closer to the window, her eyes scanning the forest outside. The trees seemed to sway in the wind, their leaves rustling as if whispering secrets to each other. As Harper watched, a shadow moved among the trees, its form indistinct but unmistakably human. She felt a chill run down her spine, a sense of unease that she had thought was gone forever. The whispers in the dark had not faded away, they had merely retreated, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Harper took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew that the journey was far from over. The forest still held its secrets, and she was determined to uncover them all. As she stepped out of the cabin and into the sunlight, she felt a sense of determination stronger than ever. The whispers might still be there, but Harper was ready to face them, to bring light. Harper walked away from the cabin. The whispers in the dark seemed to follow her, their faint, eerie voices echoing through the forest. She couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was watching her, that its secrets were still hidden just out of reach. Despite the sense of relief she felt from exposing the truth, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of her mind. Harper reached her car and started the engine, her heart pounding as she glanced back at the cabin one last time. The shadows seemed to deepen, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Just as she was about to drive away, a sudden movement in the trees caught her eye. She saw a figure emerge from the underbrush, its form blending into the darkness. Harper's heart raced as she watched the figure approach the cabin. It moved with a purpose, its steps revealing its next move. Harper's mind raced with questions. Was this someone from her past? Someone who had been left behind? Or was it something far more sinister before she could react? The figure disappeared into the cabin, leaving Harper with a sense of dread. She knew she had to find out what was happening, that she couldn't leave the forest without answers. Harper revved the engine and sped back toward the cabin, her mind filled with a mix of fear and determination. As she approached the cabin, she saw the figure emerge again, this time holding a small leather-bound journal. Harper's heart pounded in her chest as she realized it was the same journal she had found in the attic. The figure opened the journal, its eyes scanning the pages as if searching for something specific. Harper parked her car and ran toward the cabin, her breath coming in short, rapid bursts. She reached the door just as the figure closed the journal and slipped it into a pocket. The figure turned, its eyes meeting Harper's with a mixture of surprise and determination. It was Caleb, his face lined with exhaustion and fear. "Harper, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I didn't want to before, but now I know I have to." Harper's heart raced as she stepped closer, her eyes filled with a mix of hope and fear. "What is it, Caleb?" she asked, her voice trembling with urgency. Caleb took a deep breath, his eyes scanning Harper's face as if searching for the right words. "Ethan isn't the only one who disappeared," he finally said, his voice breaking. "It was me. I faked my own death to protect Ethan and myself." Harper's eyes widened in shock. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. Caleb's eyes filled with sorrow. "I knew our father would never stop searching for Ethan," he said. "I knew he would use any means necessary to get to him, so I faked my own death. Made it look like I was still hiding Ethan. I wanted to draw his attention away from Ethan and protect him at all costs." Harper felt a surge of emotions, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. She had trusted Caleb, believed that he was protecting Ethan, but now she realized that he had been protecting himself. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" she asked, her voice breaking. Caleb's eyes met hers, filled with a mix of regret and determination. "Because I was afraid," he said. "I was afraid that if I told you, you would leave and never come back. I was afraid that you would be in danger if you knew the full extent of what our father was capable." Harper felt a pang of guilt. She had been so focused on uncovering the truth about her father's crimes that she hadn't considered the possibility that Caleb had been hiding something too. "I'm sorry, Caleb," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Caleb shook his head, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and determination. "It's not your fault," he said. "I made a mistake, but I'm here now. I'm ready to face the truth, to do whatever it takes to protect Ethan and myself." Harper took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that the journey ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to face it, to uncover the truth and protect her brother and Caleb at all costs. The whispers in the dark might still be lurking in the shadows, but Harper was ready to bring light to the secrets hidden within. As Harper and Caleb made their way deeper into the forest, she felt a sense of purpose, stronger than ever. The journey had been long and challenging, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to uncover the truth and protect those she loved. The shadows of the forest might be